Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's tutorial, I'll show you how to knit a raglan style cardigan. It's going to be made to measure and I hope you will enjoy it. So if you do, don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video, and let's get into it. Now to make this cardigan, you will need your choice of yarn. I have the superwash merino wool, which is in this beige color. And it is a chunky one. I'm going to be using this for ribbing part, so for the cuffs, collar, and the bottom ribbing. And then I have another chunky yarn, which is this ombre, and it's a mix of acrylic and wool. It is 200 grams, so it comes in these big bowls, but this is what I'm going to use. This one for the ribbing, this for the main work. Then you will need 6mm needles, 5mm needles, and a cable that's comfy to work your stitches. So just because this is a raglan, I'm gonna start with smaller cable and I'm gonna change my cable when I have too many stitches to fit it on. Then you will need scissors, 4 stitch markers, needle, and a zipper, but I would recommend getting it after you do complete your cardigan and you block it out to see what kind of length zipper you need. To start with my collar ribbing, I'm gonna be using this yarn and my 5mm needles. And now the first thing you will need to figure out is how many stitches you need for your collar. So I'm gonna be doing 68 stitches in total, and it's gonna fit around my neck. So you don't have to worry about it being too tight because it's gonna be a cardigan, so you will be able to put it on. You don't have to fit your head through, so it's a bit different from the regular sweater. So I'm gonna be doing 68 stitches, but you can always go ahead, make a gauge swatch, and see how many stitches you will need around your neck. And you want to make sure it's even number. Once you figured that out, you're gonna make a slip knot, put your needle in. That is your first cast on stitch. And now to cast on, you're gonna grab your yarn like this using your index finger, your thumb, and you will cast on. So this is a long tail cast on, and you will need to have enough of tail to kind of cast on all of your stitches. And that is my 68 stitches. Now I'm just gonna turn my work, and for the ribbing, it's gonna be 1x1 ribbing, so you will knit 1, purl 1, and repeat. Just because I'm on my wrong side, I like to start with a purl, and to do a purl, you go from right to left, you wrap your yarn, and you do your purl. To do knit stitch, you put your tail to the back, go as to knit, so from left to right and to the back, wrap it around and do your stitch. Then you're gonna do purl again, so have your tail in front. Then for the knit, put the tail back in, and just like that, you're gonna repeat these stitches. And I just finished my first row. I ended on a knit stitch because I started with purl and it's even numbers, so it ended with knit. Now I'm gonna turn my work and I'm gonna be repeating this row all over again until it's long enough, and that for me is gonna be 12 rows. So you can do as many as you want. But when you do your rows, you want to make sure that you are replicating the stitch you have. So on this side, it's a knit, but on the other side, it shows as purl. So I'm going to start with purl, I'm going to do knit, purl, knit, and so on. So yeah, make sure that you look at your stitch, and to tell them apart, it's easier when you have the chunky yarn. So this V that you see is your knit stitch, and this horizontal bar here is your purl. So I'm going to go ahead and make my remaining 11 rows by repeating purl 1, knit 1, and so on. And I have finished my ribbing for the color, so this is 12 rows, but you can do as many as you want. And I have already switched my needles to 6mm ones, but before you can go ahead, change your yarn and do the main work, you will need to figure out 4 numbers. I have 68 stitches in total, and I need to split this number between the front and back and both sleeves. So front and back is identical, as well as your both sleeves, and your front is gonna split in two because this is a cardigan. So basically your work will look something like this. So that's your front, your back, and your sleeves. You will have stitch marker in between each section, and you will start to knit half your front, your sleeve, your back, your other sleeve, and your remaining half of your front. Now what I will be doing is I will have 24 stitches for the back, 12 for each of my half front, which is also equal to 24, so exactly the same as my back. And for the sleeves I will do 10 stitches each. So this is something that you will need to do as well. As you can see, my sleeve is even less than half of my back or the front, and this is how I chose to do these stitches. I usually do it by dividing this number by 3, allocating 30% for the back, 30% for the front, and 30% split between the two sleeves. But in this case it's a bit less for the sleeves. But yeah, I hope this makes sense. You generally just want to have less for the sleeves because they don't take as much as the back or the front. But once you've got these numbers, grab your work from where you finished. And now on the right side of our work, we're gonna be doing knit stitches, on the wrong side purl stitches, because this is a stockinette stitch. But basically the first row is gonna be a setup row where we will be placing our stitch markers. So now the first thing you want to do is to knit until you have knitted all of your stitches for your front half. So I'm gonna go ahead, insert my needle as to knit. I'm gonna join my yarn and I'm gonna knit 12 stitches. And that is 12 stitches. So I'm gonna grab my stitch marker, put it on, and now next step is my sleeve, for which I'm gonna knit 10 stitches. That is my sleeve done, so 10 stitches, and I'm adding stitch marker. Now for the back panel, I'm gonna do 24. And that is 24 for my back, another stitch marker on, and I'm about to do my second sleeve, which is also 10 stitches, so I'm gonna knit 10. That is 10, and you should have left the same amount as you started with, so your other half of the front, which is 12 stitches for me, so I'm gonna knit the last 12. Then you're gonna turn your work to the wrong side, and on this side you're always gonna be purling all of your stitches. So for the next round you're gonna purl all of them. To purl, you have your tail in front and go as to purl, wrap it around and slip it off like so. So let me finish this row and then I'm gonna show you how to do increases. Now when you finish your purl row, you're gonna turn your work, and from here you're gonna be doing 2 row repeat. So on your right side, when you do knit, you're gonna do increase, and then you're gonna do just a purl row and then repeat these 2. Increase row is when you are increasing before and after stitch marker, and you repeat the same thing for every single one. And what that initially means, that your work increases by 8 stitches for that one row. So you make 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 increases per row, and you always are doing it on a knit row only. So your purl is just purling all of the stitches. And there are 2 types of increases. They are called make one left, make one right, and it depends where you place them. So this is your back panel, this is your sleeve, this is your front, and same here. Now when you approach your stitch marker, before the stitch marker you will make one right, and after the stitch marker you will make one left. Then again, before the stitch marker you're gonna make one right, after stitch marker, make one left. So what you can do is basically grab a note. This is just the yarn label. Imagine that this is my stitch marker, and before that I make one right. After stitch marker is make one left. So you can just have this in front of you and know that when you come to stitch marker, it's make one right. After stitch marker, it's make one left. I'm going to show you these two type of increases anyway, but it can sometimes, especially for beginners, get confused what kind of increase you should be making. And this is really important for your work to look neat and make a proper increase where you should be making them. Now for the next first increase row, you're gonna knit until you come to one stitch before the stitch marker. So I'm gonna go ahead and knit all until I have one left. And that is one stitch left. This is where I need to make one right. And to make increase, it's always going to be in this bar in between the two stitches. So you have one knit, another, and in between those two you have this bar, which you will need to pick it up and place it like this so that your left needle goes to the back. Now, less confusing way would be to go through the back and pick up this bar, but I find it way easier to pick it up and grab it like this. So you are picking it up from the back. And then to make that increase, you're gonna go as to knit like this and do your knit stitch. Then you're gonna knit that remaining one, move your stitch marker, knit one, and this is where you will need to make one left. To make one left, you need to pick up this bar from the front, so like this. And if I go with my left needle, it would just be from the front like this. But it's way easier to pick it up with your right needle and just bring it over that way. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, it's just that make one left is from the front. And now you're gonna knit through the back loop like so. And that's your increase. And then you're gonna do this thing another 3 times. So make one right, make one left, then again make one right, make one left, and one more time make one right, make one left. And you are always making your increases one stitch before the stitch marker and one stitch after the stitch marker. So you always have this allowance. So there we go. One stitch before and one stitch after. But I'm gonna show you this till the end of the row. So now the next thing I need to do is to knit until I have one stitch left before my next stitch marker. And that's one stitch left. Here I need to make one right, and I need to pick this bar from the back like this and knit through the front. So just like this. Then knit one, move your stitch marker, knit one, and this is where you will need to make one left, which is picking up the bar from the front and knitting through the back loop like this. Then again, I'm gonna knit until I come to one stitch before my next stitch marker. And that is one stitch before stitch marker. Now I need to make one right, so I'm gonna pick up the bar from the back and I'm gonna knit into the front, so just like that. Then knit one, move your stitch marker, knit one, and this is where I'm gonna make one left, which is picking up the bar from the front and knitting into a back loop. And I have to do this one more time, so I'm gonna knit until I have one stitch left before the last stitch marker. This is where I'm gonna make one right, which is picking up the bar from the back and going through the front like this. Then I'm gonna knit one, move my stitch marker, knit one, and this is where I'm gonna make one left. So pick up from the front and knit into the back. Like so. Just gonna finish knitting all of the stitches till the end. And this is what it will look. So once you do build on your rows, you'll see those increases a bit more clear. But basically, I had 12 stitches, I have 13 now. And same with this one. So they both together increased by 2. I have my sleeves, which have 12 stitches instead of 10. I initially started because each increase is 1 on both sides. So instead of 10, I have 12, same with the other sleeve. And now for the back, I had 24, but I have 26 now because again, it increases 1 on each side. So it's 26 for my back, and it's also 26 for my front if I add them both together. Then you're just gonna turn your work to your wrong side, and when you make your pull rows, you're not making any increases, so you just basically purl all of your stitches, which I'm gonna do now. So yeah, I'm gonna purl all of these till the end, making no increases or anything like that, and always moving my stitch markers. And I just finished my purl row. Now from here, you're just gonna repeat these 2 rows. So knit with increases and purl rows until your work becomes big enough. And by big enough, I mean it needs to come all the way down to your underarm, so where your armpit is, and your stitches for the back plus the front needs to fit around your bust. We will be adding a couple of stitches for the underarm, so the front plus the back will get slightly bigger depending on how many stitches you do, but it basically needs to get big enough for your bust and to fit lengthwise until the underarm. So I'm gonna do mine and I will meet you then. But if you need to go back to the increase row to see how you need to make increases, you can simply just go back, watch that row again, and I'm sure after doing it a couple of times you will learn that it's pretty easy. So yeah, now I hope this makes sense. I would highly suggest making this note and having it nearby just to see when you come to the stitch marker, you make one right before that and make one left after. Now I'm done with doing increases, and it might be a bit difficult to see because the cable is too small to hold all of my stitches, but once I do take off the sleeve stitches, it's gonna be a bit more visible. But basically, by the time you finish your increases, you want to have your work big enough so your front and your back needs to fit your bust, even though we will add a couple of stitches for the underarm, but basically it needs to fit your bust, and this length has to be under your arm area. So it basically needs to fit your sleeves and your bust and be long enough when you do join the front and back together and remove the sleeves. So yeah, make sure it fits, and you will need to grab a needle with extra scrap yarn so that we can hold our sleeve stitches, or you can just grab a extra cable with a random needle. And to start, you're gonna knit until you come to your first stitch marker. By the way, I did 44 rows since color ribbing, so this is how many rows I have, and I'm gonna knit until my first stitch marker. You are not making any increases anymore, so yeah, just knit all of your stitches until your stitch marker, take it off, then grab your extra cable with a random needle, or just grab needle with some scrap yarn because we will be transferring our sleeve stitches, so all of the stitches until the next stitch marker onto a scrap yarn or extra cable, and you want to go purlwise, and just like that pick all of the stitches and move them over. And all of my sleeve stitches are now on this cable. Take your next stitch marker off, and I'm gonna take this needle off and replace it with a stopper. If you are using just a scrap of yarn, you can tie the two ends together to make sure that you don't lose your stitches. And now I have all of my sleeve stitches on hold until I come to it later on. So I'm just gonna ignore that cable. And I finished my front panel, so half of my front here, and I'm now on my back, which I'm gonna knit. But before I do that, I'm gonna cast on a couple of stitches because you don't want your sleeve and your work to be like this. You need a couple of stitches in between so that it's not too tight. So I would recommend casting at least a couple of stitches, and I'm gonna be casting on 4. Now to cast it off when you only have one tail, it is called back loop cast on. What you are doing is basically you grab your tail like this, you go in and you cast on. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can do any number. I would just suggest to do even number. Once you have casted on, you're gonna work all of your stitches for the back until your next stitch marker or until you reach your sleeve basically. So go ahead, knit all of your stitches until your next stitch marker. Again, when you knit your stitches for the back, I'm just gonna pull my needle. You're gonna remove a stitch marker, and this is your sleeve, which we will again transfer onto a scrap yarn or a cable. So all of these stitches until the next stitch marker will go onto hold. I'm just gonna transfer them purlwise. Again, you will remove the stitch marker. I'm gonna hold on to it while I'll change this needle to the stopper. So this is gonna be on hold. And I just switched my needle to a stopper, so my second sleeve is also on hold. And I'm gonna ignore this till later. But now you're gonna do again the same thing. You're gonna cast on those stitches that you did for your first underarm here. This is 4 for me, but you should be casting on the same number as you have here. Just to show you again, you grab your yarn like this, go in, that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm just gonna go to my last set of stitches, which is the front, so half of my front panel, and you're going to knit it all. And I just finished knitting my row, so it's now only the front and the back joined all together, and I'm not going to work on the sleeves until later on. So I'm going to leave them both until I finish my front and back, basically going all the way down to the waist, doing ribbing, and then I'm going to do the sleeves. This is how it looks. I'm not too sure if you can see it, but basically I've got my 2 front panels, my back panel here, and this should fit you. So you can go ahead, put it on and see if everything fits, if your arm fits. But from here, I'm just gonna go do my purl row, and I will repeat knit, purl, and so on until it's long enough. So now I'm gonna show you this row one more time because we have those cast on stitches. So I'm just gonna show you those. But yeah, from there you're gonna do knit and purl rows until it's long enough. So I'm just gonna purl until I come to these underarm stitches. I'll show you how to purl those. But yeah, from there you would be doing your knit and purl rows until it's long enough, leaving the allowance for bottom ribbing. And now I'm at my cast on stitches. So what you do is pretty much the same thing. You go purlwise like this, you purl your stitch, take it off, and then do the same with the other one. These are a little bit more tight, so don't be alarmed by that. But yeah, that's 2 done. 3 and 4. Now I'm just gonna purl all of these for my back. I'm gonna do the same thing here for my other underarm stitches, and I'm gonna purl all my front stitches, and from here I'm gonna do knit, purl, and so on. And I have now finished doing the length of my sweater. I have 84 rows in total from the color, so all the way from here down here I have 84 rows, and for the ribbing in this beige color I'm gonna be doing another 12 rounds. So I already switched my needles back to 5mm ones for the ribbing, and just because I want my bottom ribbing to be a bit more tight, even though the 5mm compared to 6 is gonna give that tightness, I'm gonna decrease 10 stitches. You don't have to do this, you can just do your ribbing as normal, but just because I want it to be extra tight, I'm gonna decrease 10 stitches. And I currently have 140 stitches, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna knit 12, do decrease, knit 12, do decrease, and repeat all around, and this will decrease by 10 stitches for me, so I'm gonna end up with 130 stitches. Now when you finish your work, you can cut off your yarn if you are changing color. I'm gonna cut it off because this is the end for me in this color, and I'm gonna join my beige for the ribbing. So I'm gonna go into my first stitch as to knit, wrap my new color around, and finish the stitch. The next one is gonna be purl, because this is again 1x1 ribbing, knit, purl, and you will be repeating those 2 stitches around. If you're not decreasing, just go ahead and make your ribbing. If you are decreasing, you want to decide how many stitches you need to decrease. Count my stitches. I know I want to decrease by 10, so those 10 decreases will take up 2 stitches each, because to make decrease you are using 2 stitches. So 10 decreases by 2 stitches is 20. I minus that out of my total number, so if I take 20 out of 140, I'm left with 120, and then I basically divide it by 10 by number of decreases I'm making, and it comes out to be 12 stitches. So I'll be doing 12 stitches of knit, purl, and then I'll do my decrease. So let me just do the 12 stitches of knit and purl, and I'll show you how I do decrease in case you are making it as well. And I did my 12 stitches. So now to do decrease, just because I just did purl, my decrease is gonna be in knit, and to do decrease you're just gonna go knit through both stitches and finish it off like this. If it was purl decrease, you would purl 2 together, so go as to purl through 2 stitches and just do it like this. But I've got my decrease done. I'm just gonna continue now working another 12 stitches doing decrease, and I'll repeat this all around. And I did another 12 stitches, so now it's decrease purl wise, which I can show you again. You go as to purl through 2 stitches and purl 2 together, just like this. So I'm gonna do my first row, and then I'm gonna see you at the end. And I just finished my first row where I did decreases. From now on, it's only gonna be knit and purl, so I'm always gonna be knitting my knit and purling my purl stitches. So yeah, you're gonna go ahead and make your ribbing for as many rows as you want. I'm gonna be having 12 in total. Let me finish my ribbing and I'll show you how to bind it off. And I have finished my 12 rows of ribbing. Once you finish yours, you will need to bind off, and to do that you want to start by purling your first or knitting your first, and then knitting or purling your second stitch, so that you have 2 on your right needle like this, and then you're gonna bring this second one over the first one like this. Now you have 1, so you need another, which is purl for me, so I'm gonna purl that and bring the first one over Then again, do your next stitch to have 2 and bring the second one over the first one. So this is what you will repeat all around until you finished all of your stitches. When you finish your bind off, pull through your yarn through that last loop, leave a bit of a tail and cut it off, tighten it up, and that's your bottom ribbing done. Now, once you've finished your main body, you will need to do the sleeves. So I've got 80 centimeter cable because mine is pretty small and I don't have a small enough needle to comfortably work it in a round, but if you do, you can do that. What I will need to do instead is basically work it in a magic loop. So I'm just gonna split this in half and pull my cable. And I already got my 6mm needles in. To do the sleeve, it's gonna be worked in round, meaning you're only gonna do knit stitches for as many rounds as you want. I'm gonna do this for 78 rounds in total. So now I'm just gonna pull my right needle and I will need to cast some stitches here. So I'm gonna be picking up 6. Even though when I did my main body, so for my bust, I cast it on 4, I'm gonna do 6 for the sleeve because when you do pick up your stitches, there are gaps on both sides. So just to prevent that gapping, I'm gonna cast on extra 1 on each side, so 6 in total. So I've got my 4 stitches, and before that, I'm just gonna go into this half stitch here to pick up my first stitch. And to pick up loops, you're gonna just pull your yarn like this. So that's 1 extra, and now I'm gonna go into my stitches to pick up those 4. Now that is 4, and I'm gonna pick up another in that half stitch like this. So I have 6 in total. Now this is where you would need your stitch marker to mark your new beginning of the round, but I'm not going to do that, and instead after I complete 1 round I'll show you how I know where the beginning of my round, but you can just place stitch marker in the middle of what you picked up. Now from here I'm going to go ahead and knit all around, so just like that. I'm gonna knit all of the stitches until I come to my picked up ones. And I just knitted half, so now I'm gonna turn my work like so. I'm gonna push this needle in and I'm gonna pull this one out to work on my other half, and this is what the magic loop method is. You just keep on having your needles in this kind of infinity and you keep on pulling when you finish one side. So I'm just gonna knit on this side as well until I come to my picked up stitches. And I'm now where my picked up stitches are. I'm just gonna feed this needle in, pull this one out, and I'm only gonna knit half of it. So I had 6, I'm gonna knit 3, and you will need to do this a bit more tight just because these are picked up stitches, so do as tight as you can. So that's 1, 2, and 3. I'm gonna again pull this needle to kind of transfer those 3 stitches on this needle, and that's gonna be my middle. So when I do come to the armpit, because if I show you my work this way, this is where the underarm is, and this is where I know that my round ends. But you can also simply add stitch marker on to know where the beginning of your round is. From here, you're gonna go on and do your knit rounds until your sleeve is long enough, but you will need to leave allowance for your sleeve ribbing. So do that and I will see you then. And I have now finished the length of my sleeve. So from this part where I finished doing the sleeve, I made another 78 rounds. this is where I'm gonna stop doing in this color, and I'm gonna switch to ribbing. Once you're ready to do that, you're gonna change your needles back to 5mm ones. And I have 58 stitches for my sleeve. I want to decrease it by about 12 stitches. So I'm gonna be doing 12 decreases around. I'm gonna do 3 stitches in knit, decrease and repeat. And by the end I will have 3 stitches left, so I'm gonna squeeze in another decrease to make it 12 so that I have even number of stitches. If you want to make any decreases, just make sure you spread them evenly and you end up with even number of stitches at the end. Now I didn't show you this when I did bottom ribbing, but I actually ended up doing knit row in the color to make sure it looks nicer. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna join my new color, which is the ribbing one. And I'm gonna knit 3 to begin with. And then I'm gonna place my decrease, which is knit 2 together. Then again, knit 3. And decrease by doing knit 2 together. So I'm gonna repeat this all around. And from there I'm gonna do knit 1, purl 1, and repeat. And I'm almost at the end. I have 3 stitches left. So my pattern was to knit 3 and do decrease, which takes up 5 stitches, and I did that 11 times, and now I only have 3 left. So I'm gonna knit 1 for this end, and I'm gonna decrease in the last 2, just because of how many decreases I want to do and how many stitches I started with. So this is a set up round, which is now done. And from here, I'm gonna be doing knit 1, purl 1, and repeat. I'm gonna show you this one more time, even though you already know this, but it's just basically knit 1, purl 1, and repeat for as many rounds as you want your cuff to be. So I'm gonna do my rounds and I'll show you how to bind off, which is gonna be a bit different to the normal bind off, just because I don't want that to be too tight. So I'll show you another method on how to bind off. And I have my ribbing done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my needle to bind this off instead of doing regular bind off, just because I want this to be a bit stretchier, and when you do regular bind off it can come out a bit tight. So you want to cut off your yarn with a pretty long tail to make sure you have enough. And what you will need to do is insert your needle through 2 stitches purlwise, and then through 1 stitch, which is the last on your needle, knitwise, and then drop that 1 stitch off. Again, insert through 2 stitches purlwise, and through 1 knitwise. And then drop that stitch off. And you're gonna repeat this until the end. So insert your needle through 2 stitches purlwise, through 1 knitwise, and drop that 1 stitch off. So I'm gonna do this and I'll show you what to do at the very end as well. Now once you have just 2 stitches left, go as to purl with your needle like this, then knitwise through this one, drop it off, and you're gonna go knitwise through your last one to finish that all off. I then like to connect the 2 ends, so I'm going into the knit stitch from the right side like so to kind of tie it all together. I'm gonna hide this tail in, but this is how this bind off looks like, and it's a lot stretchier than regular one. Once you finish your one sleeve, you're gonna go ahead make another one, and then you will need to hide all of the tails in, which I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna show you one with this ribbing because it's a bit different from the main work. So I've got this needle which is slightly bent here, and it makes doing this much easier. But what I like to do when I come to the ribbing is basically I'm gonna go into these knit loops and I'm gonna go all the way up. So basically you're just kind of going into every single one of these. And if your needle is straight, you will need to do this one by one. So you'll do one, pull it up, do the next, pull it up, and so on. Then I like to go in the other way as well. So I'm just gonna go into the next knit, and I'm pretty much gonna do the same thing again. Now ignore this because it's where my tail started, so it's a bit loose until it's hidden in, but that's how it looks. When you're done, cut it off. And then I'm also going to show you how to hide your other tails, which is going to be in this purl side, so it's your wrong side. And what you will be doing is basically replicating your knit stitch so that it doesn't show on the right side. And now it might be a bit tricky to see, but basically you want to find and see your knit stitches. So your knit stitch is a V on this side, but from the wrong side it's kind of like a loop. And what I'm doing is I'm going into one purl, then into the next purl on the other side from the bottom, and then I pull it up and go from this side into another purl on the other side and down into the same purl I came from. I hope this is gonna be visible enough, so I'm just gonna start on this side basically, and I'm gonna start with one purl, go into the side on my right, so that's 1, 2. From the top, I'm gonna go into the next one on the other side, so this time on the left, and down into the one I started. So I come from the bottom into this, and from the top I come into this and this. So this is how you replicate your knit stitch. So that's one done. Now I'm gonna move to the side to do the same in my next one. So into the middle, to the right, pull your tail up, from the top into the left and down in this bottom one. And you're gonna keep doing this until your tail is secure enough. Once you're done, cut it off. Hide any other tails. And then before you install your zipper, you will need to block this out, let it dry, and I'll show you how to install zipper. And my cardigan is blocked and it's now dry, so I'm gonna be attaching my zipper, and my zipper is slightly longer than the cardigan itself. I'm not too sure if I can show you, but it is basically by this much longer. So I'm gonna start at the bottom because the top I can always adjust and cut off remaining, but the bottom has this part here. So I'm just gonna leave it and I'm gonna start joining from the bottom. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a sewing thread and a needle, and I have quite a bit here. And then I'm also gonna use these sewing clips to hold it in place. And instead of sewing it right on the top like that, I'm gonna flip it right side down. I'm gonna clip it in place and I'm gonna try to sew this way. So I'm gonna be aiming for this middle in between the stitches and try to sew as straight as I can. So the first thing is just to pin it in place. And basically I'm just gonna go from one side to the other and from the other side back where I started. So okay, so I'm just gonna go from one side, pull it all the way down, and then I'm gonna go close to where I have my stitch so that I can secure it in. Even though I have a knot here, I'm just gonna insert between these two to make it a bit more secure. And from here, I'm just gonna go like this, so from one side to the other, and I'm just gonna keep on doing this throughout the full length. So it's gonna take a minute, but just take your time and do your best sewing it like so. And I am done sewing one side, so I'm just gonna make a knot to secure my thread, and I'm gonna cut it off. This is how it looks from the right side. I might have to iron it, so I'm gonna just put a towel over and then iron this a bit, but as long as it unzips and it doesn't get caught, you're gonna be fine. So yeah, this seems to be okay. Now I'm just gonna do the same thing with the other one. So I'm basically gonna unzip it. I'm then just gonna kind of fold it over like this so that you can again pin it in place, sew it, and once you're done sewing, you unfold it and it's gonna be looking the same as your other one. So when you have your zipper here, you're gonna fold it over like this. It's gonna be a bit trickier, but it's only gonna be for this part where your zipper's head is. And I have now joined both sides of the zipper for these bottoms, basically just because they are really hard and it's barely impossible to go with a needle. So what I did, I basically used my lighter to heat up the needle so that I can punch holes. I did 3 holes and I just sewed this end here to kind of have it in place. And then for all of the thread tails, I did a couple of knots before I cut them off. For the top, I just basically folded whatever is left, because if you do cut it off, especially this hard part, it's gonna start unraveling and it's not gonna be secure. So I just folded it over, sewed it in place, which isn't neat at all because I'm not that great at sewing, but this is how it looks. And most importantly, it works. So that's what I care the most about. So but yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to hit subscribe because it really helps this channel a lot. Like this video and I'll see you in my next one.